Before we dive into the tutorial, let's take a look at some examples of what you can do with lakes and waterfalls in my past cities. Check out this wicked waterfall which I added in a nature reserve that goes all along this area, and let's check out this path which looks unsafe, but I love the details that they have on this. And let's check out if there's a lot of people here. Yep, we have a considerable number of tourists coming along. And check out that view of the lake where there is an island in the middle. There you go. Let's follow the path, and here's another waterfall. There, I really love this bridge. This bridge is just so awesome. So everybody's over here. I guess they're leaving or coming in. And then here's another waterfall. And going across here, we got more camping sites. And then another waterfall, right? You can never have enough. And we got more campfires. Going across this bridge again. Then finally to our little island. And yeah, let's take a look at this angle. There you go. It is nice having waterfalls in your city, just to spice things up a little, you know, just add just that little extra oomph into it. This is Captain Ahvious, and welcome to Let's Design a Vanilla Artificial Lake and Waterfall. For this tutorial, we will be doing this with no mods, and the very first thing you need to do to make a lake is to dig. How large the lake will be is completely up to you, but the real question is, how deep should the lake be? The minimum depth of your lake should be about 20 units. But what are units? Terrain measurements work exactly the same way as road measurements. For example, when stretching a road, you will notice a white line which is exactly 10 units. If you go halfway, that is the 5 unit mark. So in this instance, this is 15 units long. As for the terrain, each depth will show a thin line. There it is, there's the thin line. And then the brighter line is the 10 unit mark. So for this case, we want 20. So this is 10, this is around 20 here. So that is actually more than 20, which is completely fine as long as it is a minimum of 20 units. You can of course go deeper, but try not to dig a hole all the way to China. Just 20 units will suffice. Back to our lake, which has a depth of a little over 20 units, which is deep enough that when you place in the fresh water outlet, it won't be visible from the surface. The water outlets, however, do require a power source. You can place down a wind turbine, or in my case, I'm going to add a road around the lake and zone the area to have buildings close enough to power the water outlets. We will let the lake fill in while we prepare a short artificial canal for the water to flow out from. In this case, I will be using cliff rocks to guide the water out from the lake and into a nearby river. The positioning of the water outlets depends on what you plan to place in your lake. In my case, I plan to put in the sea life enclosure at the end of the lake, and to avoid any collision, I place the water outlets as far away as possible. One water outlet should be more than enough to fill in this lake, but I have no real plans on putting anything else other than the sea life enclosure, so I placed in 2 water outlets instead. Just to make the area a little more fancy, we'll just continue decorating the surrounding areas with more rocks and trees. Just remember that this is your world. You can have anything you want, and remember that nature doesn't make any mistakes, so feel free to plant as many trees as you desire. If planting trees doesn't make you happy, then you're not doing it right. Be proud to be planting trees, that you're making a difference to fight global warming by planting digital trees. Sometimes I would wake up in the middle of the night and turn on city skylines because I just recalled that I placed in this one tree in the middle of nowhere, and thought that he needs a friend. So I planted in more trees. I added in different size conifer trees and some oak trees and a rock friend. So there is now diversity in their little circle. However, the very next day I built a highway over them because I needed the space. When creating your lake, you may experience this, where the water doesn't fill the lake and you instead have this ugly, steep soil. To control the lake height, you and the outpour of the water into your river or canal, you have to nearly block the passageway by only allowing about 2 units deep for the water to pass through. So what happens is it doesn't flood all the way around, but instead the water will seep through this direction. So you got to make sure there's at least 2 to 3 units deep, that the direction of the water flow is controlled. Now that we've given just about 2 to 3 units deep for water passage into the canal, we are just going to wait for the lake to fill in, and we'll do some minor adjustments to the two canals so the water flow is somewhat even. To make your waterfalls, instead of making a smooth slope going into the river, make the slope steep. The steep slope will give the waterfall effect, though I am not aiming to create an extremely steep waterfall, just enough that it looks appropriate for the area. And last but not least, we are going to redo these straight roads to match our theme of organic roads. This would make the area look much more natural. Let's review our work. The lake looks more filled in, and looking at the water height from the sea life enclosure, it looks perfect. You don't see too much of the underwater pillars. The water height is just right. However, you can slightly see the water outlets, but it's not as obvious. They actually look like underwater rocks, so that is acceptable. And now let's check out the waterfalls that we created here. It is not as dramatic as the previous sample that we had. It's not too much. Actually, looking at from this angle, it looks just about right. Looking down into that, it looks great. And then let's check out these cliff rocks. It is different. Right, we took a different approach and it works. Doesn't look terrible by any means. And lastly, let's check out this bridge. So instead of having a normal bridge, I was able to put in this suspension enclosure instead, so it looks much better, right? The way I managed to do this was when I first dug a hole to make this canal, I placed in the bridge so that it was tall enough, then after which I placed in soil to cover the pillar. So now you just have 2 ways for the water to go through. The city that I'm using for this tutorial is part of my Let's Play series Organic Road Layout that is 100% vanilla with no mods or Steam assets. So whatever you see here is completely doable on console, PS4 or Xbox. If you want to see how we started the city to its current state, feel free to browse my YouTube playlist, and I also have other tutorial city game guides or design videos that may interest you. This is Captain Ahvious. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again in the next video.